today it's a special edition with the title A Look into the Zone. And I'm your guest, Maria Ganea. Now, you may think, what happened to Roscoe Owens? Has not vanished. He actually is the special guest today. And my role is normally behind the camera, on the audio set, as a stage manager, and we just changed positions because it's worthwhile to go back and look back, especially to the beginnings. So welcome, Roscoe, to your own show.
First of all, thank you, Maria, because you're absolutely right. You're an incredible camera person, incredible team player, and when change happens, change is good. So.
Yeah, we are a team. Finally, I have the opportunity to ask the basic questions.
Yeah.
When, how, and why did you start the JazzZone? Why is it the JazzZone? Okay.
Okay, that's a three-part question, and that's great.
A lot of, yeah.
When, why,
How?
and how. When I was involved with my father. His name is Jimmy Owens, and he had the Jimmy Owens Trio. And I grew up with music in the house, but never learned to play, never wanted to play, not really interested in the music business. But through life teaches you other kinds of things, and your skills that you develop, you begin to use them because they become blessings. And I got very much involved with my father in his later years. As a kid, at 15, I knew everything and he didn't know much. A man at 25, 26, 27, I began to understand that my father knew a lot. At 40, I knew he was a genius, and I was glad to be mentored by him as an individual. So just growing up through music, and at that age, not understanding, but there were many very great musicians that came through our household. My father was from East St. Louis, so was Miles Davis, and they were very good friends, and was a little older than Miles in high school, but my mother and Miles Davis' first wife were the best of friends. So a lot of musicians came from the East Coast and stayed at the house through weekends back in the early 50s. And there was always rehearsals going on in my house, or his home. And I would always run away, go do something else. I had a lot of energy. So later, after I understood my dad was a genius, I got involved with what he was doing as a musician. And one day we had this conversation. He said he was kind of getting old. Now, I told him he was kind of getting old because he was kind of just mellow and not doing very much. And he said he was going to go back to playing drums. And a very good friend of his named Curtis Kurt had his drums put up in his garage for almost 20 years.
Saved it.
Saved
His very own drums.
Very own drums.
Yeah, and for what reason did he get back to the drums, like to the roots?
When there is a feeling that you know that you have that becomes somewhat subdued or emptied, sometimes you have to go back. It's like what we're doing now, going back to find out. And so he got involved and in the Pasadena area, and he developed his trio called the Jimmy Owens Trio, and they played around the Pasadena area, and then they started playing, of course, in the Los Angeles area and then in Southern California. And I would go to a lot of them.
Yeah.
And my father became ill, and as he succumbed to the illness, the more I was drawn to be a part of what he was doing, to the fact that I would rack up his drums and take them to the gig, and then I'd leave and come back and rack them up and put them back up and do that kind of thing until I began to stay and enjoy the performance. And then my skills, I was in marketing, and I was working for Allstate at the time, and I've also been involved with a lot of creative people all my life with artists, mostly painters, fine artists, and owned some galleries. And my spirit spoke to me. And the more I got involved, the more I got involved. And the last CD, of course they were called tapes and records at that time, he created, my father's last CD was called Keeping It Alive. And it was this whole theme about keeping jazz live and opening up different venues and being sure that these venues that were moving into rock and roll or DJs would have the opportunity to keep live music in their establishments. So I thought that was a nice cause, and I went around and helped my father find different venues for them to play. And to one day, he was too ill to play, and he wouldn't pass the key. And he had a gig to do, and I said, well, let me talk to the people. Well, you don't know what you know. Give me the phone. And that point became a pivotal point for me in terms of continuing to put jazz live. And it was the Jimmy Owens Trio plus one. And then it became the Jimmy Owens Jazz Ensemble. And that was probably within a 2-3 year span. And before I knew it, I'd stuck so much of myself in it, I recreated it and named it the JazzZone. That's how we started that.
So, and the name came into being.
Yes.
The JazzZone.
Yes.
How often did I rehearse that? JazzZone.
Yes.
Yeah.
A lot of people use Jazz One because the third Z in there.
Yeah.
It's easy to lose.
Yeah.
But
and how? So you explored the world of jazz, and you combined it with the paintings. We always have this wonderful, nice setup here, artistic setup. So you are a very artistic person yourself, not only in music.
my artistic ability is just the blessing I have to create different scenarios. Because I had the art gallery, and I've interviewed some of the very fine artists that are here in the United States and abroad, the combination was just very natural to me, the music and the art. And when I was doing the Jimmy Owens Trio, there was always some art involved, and the more I got into myself in the involvement with my dad and pursuing a legacy, and that's what it turned into, the legacy of my father, Jimmy Owens, and the opportunity to add. And my opportunity to add was to add the creative aspect of very fine artists like Aziz Jang, who did a whole series on him, the young lady Aldonia Bailey, who created the logo for the JazzZone, is also a young lady that did a complete series in regards to my father as well. And this combination just began to evolve to the fact that it has evolved to where my son, his name is Kijana Owens, and he lives in Dallas, Texas, has taken upon that tradition and is moving JazzZone into another light as well.
I would have asked for him anyways.
Yes.
I was so impressed meeting him,
Yes.
doing a show with him. And he's not only a wonderful speaker and motivational speaker, and he's writing poetry,
Yes.
isn't it?
Yes.
But I want to go back to the JazzZone,
Yes.
because my personal background is in classical music.
Yes.
And I love to work with you on the set. And then I realized that jazz is not only just another kind of music, another type of music. It's a lifestyle.
Yes.
It's a zone.
Yes.
Oh, could you just give me, European, a look into the zone?
Well, you're right. Jazz, and people look at JazzZone and they think music because it's a category of music.
I would have done that, yeah.
But you know, you were jazz. You were jazzy. when I met you and we were shooting our JazzZone show, with the opportunity you began to run the camera and you're doing the audio and you began to learn more, but it was your energy and
Yeah.
attitude and that jazzy feeling that you had that really worked with what we were doing,
Yeah.
not only with the show, but what we were doing inside of our spirit. I'm very much a believer in the unit that's inside is really projected to the outside, as opposed to the outside veneer that we see, and then try to figure out if there is any spiritual unit inside. So this jazzy is a feeling, it's a way of life, you've seen youngsters, and I've been young and older, it's like, okay, oh, that's a jazzy walk. I mean, just the walk, the clothing that is worn. I see the new move in terms of the dance, which is a legacy of stepping from Chicago, but it's stepping and say, well, that's a dance, but it's a whole way of life. It's a look. It's the clothes that they wear to go stepping. And stepping is, of course, people come, well, I want to learn how to do stepping, and they're thinking of the dance.
Yeah.
But it's the whole energy of it all. Currently, right now in the JazzZone, we're working on the infrastructure, which actually came to me because of so much in the news about our infrastructure in terms of a world, you know, our environment, taking care of our society. Then it gets down to our state, our city, our community, to the self. And it is reorchestrating the infrastructure so you can stand strong, the infrastructure of your spirit, of your mind, your body, and then your projection of what you're doing in a positive light. And so that's our internal posture in the JazzZone right now in this October '07.
So it's not only entertaining, it's very much educational.
Extremely educational.
Educational.
Um,
For the whole being.
if for people that can open their mind and understand, yes, it's totally education for the entire being. We don't just come to do a performance. The education is we come on time, we come sharp, we come prepared, and that's a mentoring aspect to anybody that is watching, you know, because you have band. Well, we had a band. Okay. We're not a band. We're
Yeah,
we're
I
happening.
have. Yeah, Roscoe, I have so many questions. I
Yeah.
just sorted it out in my mind.
Good.
But of course, I will go back to the basic beginning questions. We heard the how and the why
Yes.
it started.
Yes.
And now let's go to the how and when and how long are you doing this project now as a television show?
Well, our television show was a transition as well. Because I had the art galleries and it was the opportunity in terms of marketing to showcase, especially minority artists, a lot of African American artists that did not have the opportunity to be showcased in the late 80s. Of course, they had a show where as work was on, I think, Good Times, which was Ernie Barnes's work, and then they had another show which Barnett Honeywood was an artist. And these are two African American artists, both one male, one female, and their work was televised, which gave the opportunity for people to see the work of African American artists and understand that not only is it good, but it's meaningful. And so in the aspects of what I was doing with art was, especially in our community, is teaching the fact that it's okay to see yourself on the wall. Whereas many households had trees and flowers and things like that, but it's okay to see yourself. And through that, I developed a show with Channel 56, which was called Meeting the Artist of California, and had the opportunity to interview Cynthia St. James, Charles Dixon, Jamil Rashid. All of these individuals are very, very great, well-known international artists at this point. And at that time, they were very good artists, but not quite exposed. So I was just doing my little part in exposing the art to a community. And so consequently, it grew into what I was doing with my dad and Jimmy Owens, and I've had him on the show. And then it turned into JazzZone, which is the combination of all. We just completed a show with Jerry Jones, who is a playwright. Nothing to do with jazz, the music, nothing to do with painting, but everything to do with character and creativity. And that's kind of where we try to lay our foundation.
Yeah. This is what fascinating me all the time, is what different kind of people I meet on your shows. Yeah. I'm really honored and proud to be a part of your shows. It's a part of my education, the missing education. And of course I have to ask you now, have there been guests, very special guests you enjoyed very much, or you were impressed?
Well, you know, the last guest,
yeah.
and I could say that all the guests are very special.
We know that, yeah.
The last guest that I had, which was just today, Mr. Jerry Jones, is very special in the fact that I met him on the phone on, it was a special holiday, which was Easter. We had a very long conversation. He very much put me in mind of my father, look, age, the whole demeanor, and from Chicago, which is just up the street from East St. Louis.
Yeah.
And East St. Louis is kind of that kind of town, if you know about East St. Louis, that is. But at any rate, I've had the opportunity to have in my spirit 3 special women that I've called mother. And the last mother that I had was Doll Scott McDuff, who was a very special individual that was married to Jack McDuff, was a fantastic singer in her own right. And one day I was talking to her on the phone, and I'm looking at a picture of her because my father played in his band, in her band in Hollywood back in the 50s. And so just the relationship there, she was very, very special. I've had, I have to mention one very, very special person, which was my wife, that we had our show, and what had happened, there was a change. And I asked her to interview me, which I had the opportunity to interface with her on TV as she was interviewing myself in the JazzZone, and I had the opportunity to also interview her, and that was very, very special. I had my sister on the show, and she's a very spiritual young lady, along with another friend of ours, Miss Yolanda Doyen, and it was speaking of the spirit of women and their movement, and that was quite special. So you can see I'm very family oriented. I do love that. Many of the friends that I have are of 20, 30, and 40 years in terms of span of time, which I truly enjoy, because that's a blessing in itself right there.
As I'm just working this year with you, I had the pleasure to do the show with Billy Mitchell.
Yes.
Twice.
Yes.
As you interviewed him, and we had the pleasure to hear him playing with his group and with his colleagues, it was a pure pleasure. And I would like to talk to you a little bit about that, because Billy Mitchell has a mission, and you have a mission, and I think you have the same mission, which means putting the basic music education to the kids, because the arts and the music is falling out of the school system. And maybe you can explain why it's so important to have music and to have the arts in life.
Yes. First of all, Billy is a very special person and a special friend of mine as well. I met Billy Mitchell. I was a probation officer working in juvenile hall, and he was teaching in the juvenile hall system. And he's been a teacher and a mentor ever since I've known him. We had the opportunity to work together in Pasadena for the Pasadena Summer Festival for at least 10 or 12 years. And Billy is a special individual because I had said earlier on the show that I was with Allstate Insurance and I had the opportunity to insure him and his sons. So again, it's a family matter. Billy said in his a statement on our show, it's a crisis. And I totally understand and believe that. The amount of funds that are being expended by our country, wherever they are doing, is alleviating the kind of funds that we need in our infrastructure, which is, they told me when I was going to school that our children are the most important asset. So I got involved with my education regarding sociology and psychology, working with children. But I soon found out that I could get paid a lot more if I worked with computers than I could if I worked with children, even though our children are our most important asset. He understands that, and I do as well. The kind of funding that they've removed from the schools has to be replaced. And it has to be replaced with people that have the conscience and the sense and the spirit to have that, I don't care, I'm going to do it anyway. And that's Billy Mitchell. It's that, it's not I don't care, it's I care so much that I cannot not do it. His program, SAPA, is a fantastic program that offers scholarships to children, and he has put it out there whereas the children have the opportunity to come and get scholarships to learn music, but it's not only music, it's mentorship. He has many fine musicians that are teaching music, but also teaching the rite of passage in a sense, very jazzy. Billy has a commitment and is a driven young man that I am so proud to call my friend and mentor, and I learned a lot from him. And as he's given to our community through what he does, and he's so serious, and it is a crisis, I have to repeat that. He came on the show with, on our last show, he's been on the show many times, on our last show with the group Minority Report. Woo! Talking about jazz. These young folks, and he reminded me of an air, I'm just going to use his name, Miles Davis, because as Miles Davis was coming through and performing jazz, he got involved with younger musicians that seemed to put new life. And I have to say this, with what Billy is doing with the Minority Report and what he is doing with our children has, to me as an individual, put new life into who I know as Billy Mitchell, to be a very driven individual to make things happen. And we're both fortunate to have worked on that show together.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
This is why I always mention him, and we support him in this mission very much.
Yes.
Isn't it as well so important for the children not only to get the feeling for the arts, to get the quality, it's making music, producing music, playing instruments, playing together, singing, whatever, means to learn how to be a team player.
How to be a team player, and I'm
And
glad
for the intelligence training,
I'm glad you brought that up, because JazzZone is about a collective. It's a collective energy of people that have the same kind of goals in mind, because it is about having a goal. People come to the JazzZone and say, well, you know, I just want to help. Well, please have an agenda, because if you don't have an agenda, it must be hidden. So please allow the agenda to come out so that we can coexist and work together and progress. The aspect of teaching teamsmanship comes through mentoring and doing. And that's what's really happening with what Billy is doing, which is what we are doing collectively in the JazzZone, because we have a lot of teachers, a lot of mentors that are involved in the JazzZone, like Billy Mitchell, like many other artists. Our collective responsibility is on our website, JazzZone.net. We have the SAPA program where people can go up and look on the website and say, oh, SAPA, and they can go back and find the educational opportunities through what they offer in terms of scholarship. We have the Sabato School of Music, Francis Sabato, who was on the show as well, who teaches piano and voice and performance. And so our opportunity that, going back to the beginning, that my father did is keep it alive. Well, there's so many aspects of keeping what alive? Well, it must be keeping this sense
Yeah.
of what we need to do and this purpose alive.
Oh my, Roscoe, we are running out of time. We have just 2 minutes left. Unfortunately, because now we could go on and go on. So could you give us an outlook?
Yes.
What are you planning for the futures? What kind of guests? What kind of shows? What?
All right, a couple of things we're doing for our future. One is relying, that's not a good word. I'm looking at the opportunities that my son is bringing to the JazzZone to take it to another level. I'm looking at that energy and that spirit to be able to drive the force home. The opportunities we can give and have for children are great, and our wrap-up is develop a strong infrastructure so we can be effective in the total zone.
Some name dropping?
Name dropping, Maria.
No, I mean special guests, yeah.
Special guest. The special name that I'm going to drop was the most special guest that I have had, and that's my father, James Burton Owens. Other than that, they're all special.
Yeah. So we are coming to an end
Yes,
of this show, of course, not of our partnership
that's right.
in the JazzZone.
Yes.
I have to say goodbye. Enjoy the JazzZone and the Jazz Live, because you out there, you know exactly it takes an artist to know art. You have to have the music in your range and in your heart that you can hear and listen to the music. So go on swinging and have a good time and smile.
And thank you.
Thank you, Roscoe.
That's good. That's good. That's good.
So we did it.
We did.